We touched on government just a little bit last class, but one thing we want to keep in mind is that there's a very important theoretical idea that underlies a Roman concept of government, and that's the idea of imperium, which we might interpret as a right to command. So while Roman government is democratic in some ways and has a bit of democracy to it, the power that that form of republican government has is entrusted into the hands of a select few group of people and is largely unquestioned. And so, who those people are, those folks are known as patricians. They are large landowners, they're aristocrats. In the 400s or 500s, it's probably about 130 leading families. And they choose representatives to form the government, and that government, we mentioned this last class, is called a senex, S-E-N-E-X. You clearly see the root of our modern idea of senate to it. First, it's comprised of 100 individuals. Later, it merges to be 300. We'll see when we get to Julius Caesar, it expands even beyond that. These folks in here are called patricians. So patricians are kind of the old school wealthy families that come from those foundational groups for Rome itself. But as Rome grows, and we know that Rome incorporates all sorts of people, we can go back to the Sabine women, we can think about as they conquered the Italian peninsula, new groups join in, which actually creates kind of a new rising upper middle class of folks who are able to be successful. This new group, contrasted to the old group, are known as plebeians. So new wealthy families, the masses, essentially any adult male who can afford weapons. And these folks are represented by a separate group, and this group comes to be known as the assembly. So in some ways it's very similar to our House and our Senate, the assembly and the senex. Within this assembly there's a leader who's elected, kind of like the Speaker of the House. He's known as the tribune. And in the Senate, there are two senators elected as consuls, and they are leaders for one-year terms. Normally there's a consul for peace and a consul for war, one who kind of hangs out in Rome and one who leads the military, but that's not necessarily always the case. And theoretically, what these folks do, their actions, have to be approved by the Senate, and then ultimately also the Assembly. That's in theory, and in reality, they have something that is much more akin to despotic power. In times of particular crisis especially, one consul could be appointed for 6 months to govern as a dictator. Later on it turns into a year. So this is kind of the foundation that we're going to start from. We'll dig into it a little bit more, but first we want to talk about Roman social organization, which also in some ways mirrors and forms the foundation for Roman political organization.